Okay, you should be started on the Showa essay by now and have gotten the early draft stages done. And also for today, I want everybody to make sure they go through and they take the quiz on the Chapter 1 grammar, okay? And so let me go through that a little bit. Now, one thing I did do, and I'll come back to this in a bit, I have moved the deadline, the due date for the next essay, for the Showa essay, over to Monday the 22nd, okay? I imagine there's a few sighs of relief out there, but I'm going to move it over there because I'm running a little bit behind on getting all the grading done. I want everybody to get a video evaluation of your first essay, and I will be going through everybody's essay and sending you a video of it. It just takes an enormous amount of time to finish them all. So I will be doing that, and I hope to be sending them out Friday or the latest Saturday, and then you can look over your first essay, understand what you need to work on and get better at, and then use that knowledge on your second essay, okay? So I am moving that over to the 22nd, by the end of the day on the 22nd. We will need to get started on the next one, on the civil rights one, immediately because we don't want to fall behind. So we run out of time with the last essay on the art issue, okay? So that's what we're going to do. Now, but everybody, I want you to make sure you finish the quiz, and it's here in the assignments. Make sure you take the quiz, click on this here, and then take the quiz. It automatically grades and puts a grade in. And I should admit, I am just learning how to use this. This should be easier than the way I did quizzes before. But it's a multiple choice quiz. Go ahead and finish this sometime today and submit it, and it will automatically grade. And so far I've seen a few number of folks have already finished it, and that's good. But keep going at it, and I'll have this set up for Chapter 2, and I'll post a Chapter 2 video probably tomorrow, okay? All right, so let me go through a little bit with the Showa essay and make sure everybody's moving in the right direction, because I know some people are confused. And on this demonstration, I've gone ahead and prepared some work beforehand. And what I've done is go to some testimonies that I don't think anybody's going to use. My problem is always I don't want to start picking quotations out of the works we're going to be writing on, because inevitably somebody's going to say, oh my gosh, you took the quotations I've already started on and you're saying things very similar to what I'm saying. Okay, so I've taken some different quotations that are not part of the testimonies in the discussion area. So you should have gone through. Everybody should be done with the course videos, the Showa videos, and you've gone through everything carefully, all of these at least. Now, I am allowing you, if you want to go to other parts of the book or the movie. And I do want to warn you, the book is not a perfect transcription of the movie. They were a little bit fast and loose at points. Please keep in mind that Landsman speaks French. Many of his witnesses speak either Polish or German or French, or usually Polish or German, or other languages. So they were a little bit fast and loose when they were moving it over to English. Rarely was English used in the original movie. So you don't get perfect transcriptions, but it's good enough. Okay, it works. You should be working primarily watching the movie, but for your quotations, working from the book. Find them in the book and then get them. And again, the book reads rapidly. I've had many students go ahead and read the whole book fairly quickly. It's 180 or 90 some odd pages, but it reads much more like a 60 to 80 page piece of work, because it's mostly dialogue, or it's all dialogue. Okay, so it's up to you. So quickly going back to the assignment itself, just so you know where we're going. And I'm just going to cover the early draft stages, because if you get these early draft stages down, you're going to be in a lot better shape later on, okay? The early draft stages must be taken care of, so I'm going to go through that. First, going to back to the assignment sheet, so everybody understands where we're going, is that write a 6-paragraph essay, and always keep in mind that means 4 body paragraphs, plus an introduction and a conclusion. That makes 6. Okay, and the thesis is going to come at the bottom end of your introduction and at the top of your conclusion. Okay, so that's going to be your 6 paragraphs. Okay, so 4 body paragraphs, introduction, conclusion, that makes 6. Using either the Jewish, Polish, or German witnesses. And I want to be clear, you can take it from anywhere in the book. I picked the sections that I've found over time work best with the students that they seem to like, but you are free to go elsewhere within Showa. Don't go to outside sources. Just because it can get, it's not that I'm against outside materials for understanding the Holocaust. They can be very useful. But it gets away. It could get away from the nature of the assignment, which was to interpret and analyze the testimonies of the survivors of it, both Jewish, German, and Polish. And Showa just does a magnificent job. I just find when people have gone to other sources, they get tangled up into issues that are really not part of the goal for this assignment and for this class. So, okay. So stick with Showa, but you can go outside of, outside of the movie sections I've posted. You can go to other parts of Showa. Isolate specific points in the film that deal with events at Treblinka, Auschwitz, or Chelmno should be in here too. That's my mistake, or the Jewish uprising. Okay. So my mistake. Chelmno should be here too. You can focus on Chelmno, or on Treblinka, or if you want to go to the to Auschwitz and other parts of it, you can do that too. Anything in Showa you can do. Do not try to cover the entire film or provide a report on the Holocaust. Not a report. You're doing an analysis of the testimonies. Okay? So you're not going anywhere else. You don't need to. Instead, focus on one point at a time from the testimonies of one or two of the witnesses. You can do possibly 3, but be careful if you get too many. You can jump around too much. Try to keep a focus on it. I've focused in the draft I've written on Chelmno. So I've actually got 3, but I've kept the focus on Chelmno. Okay, so then that works. But just be careful if you're jumping from Chelmno to Treblinka. Boy, you've got to be careful that you don't get too scattered. If you're going from Sukhomel to Bomba to Srebrenik to Chlebnik, you've got too many folks. It's going to create some issues. So I've focused mine by focusing entirely on Chelmno. Okay? And I should say, by the way, I picked my quotations just by opening the book and looking for some interesting things, and I found them pretty rapidly once I found some things that I thought looked interesting. I didn't know what I was going to say about them, but you'll see that I'm figuring it out and I'm getting there. Your analysis of their testimonies must be based on the close readings of the words they use and the scenes shown in the film. Okay? So that's what we're going to focus on, are these testimonies. We're not going to try to go elsewhere to other sources. You must provide an insight into how the words and scenes give an insight into the theme you are working with. Okay, so that's what we're doing. This is another analysis essay. The next one's going to do the same thing, but with civil rights issues. And then the last one's going to do the same thing, but with art. We're always doing analysis, okay? So let me show you now what I've got so far, because I've gone through most of the early draft stages. I'm going to do a little bit right here in front of you so you can see how I do it. Now, one thing to be aware of, obviously, I am an instructor. I've been at this for a while. I probably work a little bit faster, but I don't essentially work differently than most students should probably be working. And I have said this to a couple of students. I don't know if I mentioned it in the class. I've had trouble with writing. I was even kicked out of school and got D's and F's and C's. I didn't get my first A until 4 or 5 years into college. I didn't get good at it until I practiced and practiced and practiced. And then I got very good at it, obviously. So I know how it is to struggle with this. And I've obviously gotten good at it because I've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, I got through college and all that other stuff through a number of colleges. So I did struggle with it, but I used the same methodologies. So if you're somebody who struggles with writing, this approach might take a little bit longer than it currently takes me right now, but the same basic approach works with almost everybody. And the big thing you have to learn, and that I had to learn, is that slow thinking is good thinking. And to build my ideas, my analysis, from the evidence. I don't come up with an idea and then go search for the evidence to back it up. That's going to put you in a position where you're going to have a hard time actually analyzing things and coming up with original ideas. You're going to find you run out of things to say because they might contradict your original idea. If you start from the evidence it opens everything up to you, and then you can explore ideas and look into things and discover things while you are writing. So I want to really emphasize that what I did with this, and I'll show it to you with the fourth body paragraph. What I did was to find the evidence. I sat down with Shoah with the book, just right now, found some evidence, some quotations that I thought were interesting. I've never written this before, so I want to be clear. I'm doing this on the fly right now. And I didn't know what I was going to come up with. And this is what I found out. So I first put this quotation. This is from on page 67 from Michael Podschlebnik. And he's one of the more interesting ones. I've written more when I've done these in the past on Bomba and some of the others. So this was new to me. And I just found something interesting about when he arrived in there. And I found a couple things. And so I wrote this one down and I typed it in. They were routed out at night, and in the morning, I'm missing a comma here, that makes no big deal. But in the morning they reached Chelmno. There was a castle there. When he entered the castle courtyard, he knew something awful was going on. He already understood. They saw clothes and shoes scattered in the courtyard, yet they were alone there. And that was something for me. I just thought that was an odd quotation. Okay, they weren't told, but they knew immediately things are wrong. But they didn't know exactly what was happening. So I just took that one, and I'll come back to what I wrote. And then I took this other one. Their screams were heard, becoming fainter and fainter. And when there was total silence, the van left. He and the 4 others were brought out of the cellar. They went upstairs and gathered up, okay, you can tell I was typing this up quickly, gathered up the clothes remaining outside the supposed baths. Okay, again, it seems like, to me, it just seems like everything was disorganized. Like the Germans were figuring out, hey, we got to get rid of the clothes, so they just grabbed Podschlebnik. And so I thought that was kind of weird. I didn't know what to do with that, but I knew it was weird. So that's what I do. I pick odd quotations, and that allows me to make something out of them. And then I started thinking I could write entirely on Podschlebnik, and I could have. But I decided I want to get a couple of the villagers in here. Okay, so I got one of the women who lived right next to the castle. And I saw this. She says, no, yes, from the outside. She was asked whether or not she saw the Jews in the vans. No, yes, from the outside. And I just thought that was weird. Her kind of denial and then admission. And then the way she got kind of evasive. This is called obfuscation. It's just purposely covering kind of things up, but kind of admitting to them, and I just thought that would be interesting. Okay. And then the last one, which I haven't written on yet, was this one from the villagers, the women villagers. And first I thought this was just silly, but then I go, you know what, this is odd. And this was Landsman talking to the women about the women's views of the Jewish women. And I just thought that was weird. And now I haven't written anything on it yet, so I'm going to. Again, all I thought was that these were weird. And weird quotations make for interesting ideas. That's something I really want to be clear about, is exploring while you're writing. Use the writing process as an exploration process to come up with your ideas. I've got a fairly good idea of where I'm going with this now, because before I started the camera, I was working on this. And now I've got some good ideas, but it's not done. I don't know, how I'm going to end up. I don't have a thesis yet. This is what I did with Podschlebnik. I'm still mispronouncing and spelling his name. Describes when he and other Jews were first taken from their homes and moved to Chelmno. Notice I just describe it. What's going on? He clearly remembers the castle, since it was only one of the only features in the small town. He was never told why they were being taken, but he recognized immediately that things did not make sense. There were clothes and shoes strewn around. Again, I'm just describing it. Okay, that's all I'm doing. I'm putting it in my words and trying to pull things out. I'm kind of blowing it up to see what comes up and see what comes to the surface. Public, again, that's a misspelling I do all the time. But the people who owned the clothes were not anywhere to be seen. They would have been removed from the castle naked. Um, I also started to realize when I was writing this, that's peaceful, but a clear sign of violence. When clothes on that grand scale are left behind, people then have been stripped naked publicly, and then they had to have been brought away from this from their will. People don't strip down publicly in a church and then leave by their own will. Something has to be going on that's really wrong. And Podschlevnik realizes that something is dramatically wrong, but he doesn't know what it is. So then I started to go, even though there are no screams, the scene of the castle clearly indicates that the Jews who arrived before them have been forcefully stripped and taken away. Now, I want to take this further. The more I thought about it, I want to emphasize the fact that there's violence and silence together. The silence indicates the violence that's happened and the killing. Okay, and that's what the Germans are creating, is silence to cover up all the violence and screaming. He is not told of what's being done, but the signs are obvious since the Germans have not bothered to conceal the evidence from the new arrivals. And I'm going to go further into this because it seems like the Germans are making things up as they go along, but they're clearly making things up to create this deniability. Okay. They could do this since the witnesses would also be killed. In other words, Podschlevnik is going to be dead. That's what they're planning. So they can have him take part in this cover-up because he's going to be dead. But for the time being, he can be alive. That's what he's getting. Okay? So he's taking part in this because of the panic of being kept alive. So that's more that I can go into. Even though they are gone, their fate is immediately present to Podschlevnik, who understand what is being done to the Jews and what is about to happen to him. I can go into his compliance and cooperation comes from his hope that he just might be allowed to survive. So that's what I can go into, this very thin hope of being allowed to survive, because it's very important to know he is helping the Germans conceal what they are doing. He is, and he's very clear about that. So that's important to know. Why would he do that? Out of this extremely thin hope that he's going to survive. These other people, there were 4 of them, the others didn't survive. They probably did not want him around after this thing closed down. So they planned to kill him. And he can tell that. So the same thing with this. I went into their screams. He could hear the screams. So when he arrived, he didn't know what was going on, but it was obvious. Okay, there's violence going on. Now the violence is clear. This is, now I didn't go into this and I thought about it, but I didn't know enough about Chelmno. I thought about writing about him and Srebnik, because Srebnik talked about the silence, but he was at the ovens where they were being burned, and at the places where they're being buried. It seems they're being driven from one part of the town to another. Okay. So I didn't know enough about it, so I didn't do that. I decided at this point I'm just going to stick with Podschlevnik and just do him. He describes the screams and all this, and then the fact that they went silent before they drove off. That's odd because people are still going to hear them. The village is still going on about itself. It's a small town, very, very small town. It's impossible to really conceal this from the villagers at all. Okay, and the screams could have been heard. So they were waiting for the screams to die down before they drove off to bury them. And again, I thought that was odd. So I described it and what was going on. Only then did the vans drive off. This kept the noise of the screams from being heard while the vans were driving. It didn't keep the noise of the screams from being heard, only from being heard while the vans were driving. That's a very important distinction. Okay, very important because it's leading to my thesis that the Germans were developing kind of a stagecraft that allowed the Polish villagers to go ahead and willfully deny what was going on, that they ever knew, even though they knew. They had to have known. Okay. So and I analyzed that one. Why is it important? Plotnich survived only by contributing to the concealment. I make it clear that Podschlevnik takes part in the concealment of it. I don't want to, gloss this over. That's what I really want to be clear about. But he did it out of panic, okay? Out of this thin hope that he was going to survive. That would explain his nervous smile. And I don't blame him at all. So I want to be clear about that. But he was part of the concealment, and anybody who's human probably would have been. So, and then he had this with the one, Miss Michelson, who was the wife of one of the teachers. And she was odd, very cold and distant. Where is she? Yeah, Miss Michelson, wife of a Nazi school teacher. So she was at home, just, it said 150 yards away. You can hear screams, or 150 feet away. You can hear screams, okay? That's 50 yards. You can hear screams. She knew. She knew exactly what was going on. But notice her answer. She says no, and then yes from the outside. She creates this distance from the Jews. That's what she does. So she only saw things from the outside. She emphasizes her distance. That was exactly what the Germans were doing here, who were killing the Jews. They were creating just enough distance so you could distance yourself. Okay, they call this sometimes what's called plausible deniability. You give yourself just enough room to deny it. Only part of it could be used. Notice the way she talks about it, even though Podchlebnik knew exactly what was up. He didn't know how they were killing them, but he knew something horrible was going on right when he hits the ground. She acts like she didn't know anything was going on or really understood it, even though she was there for quite a long time. And this went on day after day, week after week. She had to have known. And notice she gives her distance and then changes the subject to the castle and doesn't talk about the fact that she absolutely knew what was going on. And so she takes that distance that she's being offered by this, really by this stagecraft, and uses it. And she still uses it today. She used it back then to not do anything, not say anything, not cause any ruckus. She's using it even today, decades after what was going on. She accepted the thin veil the Germans placed over the killing, killing of the Jews. You can tell this is rough riding of the Jews, and still defends her willful ignorance, even though it enabled the killing of thousands. And I should make it clear, right next to her house. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more. So, again, that's my analysis of it. This one I haven't done yet, so I want to do this for you right now and show you a little bit of what can be done. Landsman said, so the Jews did no work. None at all. Why not? They were rich. This is what the women are saying about it. The Poles had to serve them and work. So I could describe this, and I'll do this just verbally, but I'll do it in writing just because this video is taking a long time. But what I would do is describe how the Polish women resented the Jewish women, and saw them as being holding a superior social status, and saw the Polish people as being subservient to them. So what they recognized was a class structure that was built on ethnicity. The Jews were superior in class structure to the Poles, and the Poles had to serve them, and that shows their resentment. And notice that Landsman really pushes this point. Ask her again. The capital was in the Jews' hands. All Poland was in the Jews' hands. So I would describe it as the Polish women see themselves as being possessions of the Jews. So that's just describing it. Why is it important? This allows them to see the killing of the Jews as leading to the freedom of the Polish people. It allows them to believe that this mass murder, which is built on class resentment, really built on class resentment, this mass murder is being allowed to take place because the Germans found poor Poles who shared a bigotry against Jews. That bigotry, along with the class resentment, allowed them to turn away during all this killing. Okay, so that's why Chelmno became a perfect village to do it, because there's not wealth there. There's just poor folks who are going to resent people and easily stereotype the Jews and resent them. Okay? So that's what you need to do with it. Start from your quotations and build from that. That's what I've done here, and I can go ahead and keep doing this, but get your early draft stages done. And again, just go ahead and get your quotations, start writing about them, do the best you can with it early on, and then you're going to turn this into your body paragraphs and format it and everything else. So go ahead and get going on it. Look for your video on your essays. I've got all the essays here, and I'm making videos for everybody. These things take a long time to make, so I apologize for the delay in getting them. So I will get these to you. This is my work. I will get them to you soon and help you out with putting those together. But overall, you guys are doing a good job. Keep at it, and I do realize it's a lot of work. Just keep at it, and we'll make it through these 6 weeks. All right? Take care, folks.